This is the Power Producers Podcast, where we are refining and redefining the sales game.
Rule number one is you have to believe in yourself. You're the only one who doesn't think you belong in this appointment. The prospect has already validated your existence by scheduling time with you. Get it through your head you belong here, go in there, crush it, and close the deal.
A place where sales professionals can come to learn from other sales professionals and thought leaders that have mastered their craft.
The difference between a good salesperson and a best-in-class salesperson is only 2 minutes. By spending an extra 2 minutes on what you might think is a mundane task in the sales game, you separate yourselves from the pack, you grow your book of business, you close more deals, and you retain your accounts.
As well as their peers who are still striving for perfection to achieve their why.
I have a wife and 4 kids. Failure is not an option.
Real sales professionals, real stories, real results. Are you ready to feel the power?
Hey everybody, welcome to the Power Producers Podcast, where we are refining and redefining the sales game. And today we have got a great guest for you, Mr. Joel Stevenson from Yesware, and he's going to talk a little bit about how they're changing the sales game with their software product today. And I found these guys through a mutual acquaintance and decided we needed to have them on so you could hear their message. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Mr. Joel Stevenson. What's up, Joel?
Not much. Happy to be here. How are you guys doing?
We're doing.
Well, I'll tell you, Joel. I'll tell you exactly how I'm doing today. My wife is out of town. Kyle knows what's getting. He raised the eyebrows. I was in Phoenix last week for a conference. I came in, I gave my wife a high five, which I thought was just welcoming me home, and it wasn't. It was like WWE tag team, and she left and went to Ohio for the week for work. And we have got a special needs son who does not behave very well in the mornings, and specifically when mommy is gone. So the way my day started out today was waking up to find out that he had ripped a $100 bill in half that was left on the counter for the cleaning lady. He had eaten 15 chocolate chip cookies in the middle of the night. He took out a pack of 48 icy frozen pops that were in our freezer and left them sitting on the kitchen table. And by the time I was done wanting to beat him within an inch of his life, which I did not do, I needed to get them to school so that I was able to make it to the MRI machine on time to get an MRI for a tumor that's on my rib cage that has not been completely removed during surgery. So I'm going to have a second surgery. So I show up for my MRI, and apparently it was made for Lilliputians, and I'm Gulliver because I couldn't get past my kneecaps into the MRI machine before they had to back me out and tell me to find a place to go get an MRI. I've never seen anything like it in my life. Wow. I don't know that I could have put a hot dog in that thing and it would have fit. So, you know, at the end of the day, Joel, I'm doing just freaking Skippy.
Yeah. Serenity now.
Poor guy, man. You're not kidding, man. So anyhow, I appreciate it. You know, the only reason I even went into that is because there's so many people who listen to the show that know who Ethan is by name and understand that literally anything that can happen will happen in our family. So they got their daily dose. But anyhow, now that we've started off with a bang, why don't you go into a little bit about your background and what you're doing, and then I want to spend the rest of the time just let's talk about sales and technology and how you guys are sort of changing the face of how that stuff is working going forward.
Yeah, great. Well, yeah, I'm CEO of Yesware. Yesware is software for salespeople. We've got an application that lives deeply inside of your inbox, so whether that's Gmail or Outlook, and helps you get some time back, helps you figure out who's opening your emails, helps you figure out what content's working, helps you sort of string series of communications together to a group of people to be able to reach more people in less time. And before I was at Yesware, I actually spent 7.5 years at Wayfair, which you might have heard of, e-commerce company. And
were you the guy that programmed like the child trafficking stuff on the website? Holy cow! What was that nonsense about?
No, I wasn't. But funny story. When I was there, there was a project that was sort of a rogue project we did once, where we loaded like 5 million SKUs into the Wayfair website from this one big distributor. And I think some of those products were it was like weird industrial cabinets and stuff. I think some of those products maybe were the ones that somebody decided was this weird conspiracy. Yeah, that was that was strange happening.
Yeah, so for everybody listening, Joel obviously had nothing to do with that. That was me being sarcastic on what was an incredibly strange news story that came
really
out.
was.
I'm like, really, people? I mean, are we really that much of a lack of news that we have to grasp at straws like this now? Come on.
And that actually, I was talking to one of the founders about a year ago, and he was telling me that actually generated a bunch of like really weird security threats, and they had to talk to the FBI about stuff. It was like really bizarre.
Well, it didn't slow my wife down from spending money on Wayfair, so there's
they're good at that. And so the last thing I did at Wayfair was I built this B2B team. So you generally think of like, consumers going to Wayfair, but we had a group that worked with interior designers and contractors and builders and that sort of thing. So we grew that up to be about a $400 million division within Wayfair. Now I guess it's about $1.5 billion or something. And as part of that, we spent a lot of time leveraging technology to make the sales team more productive. And eventually Wayfair got a little bit too big for me. And I got to know the folks over at Yesware and sort of decided to switch sides and go from being sort of a buyer of technology to a seller of technology over at Yesware.
Good deal. So what led you to make the move?
I had a really good run at Wayfair. Had sort of done all the things that I wanted to do. I was pretty clear I wasn't going to be CEO of Wayfair because they've got a very good CEO that wasn't going anywhere. And I had been fortunate to have a bunch of different experiences over my career, and I like the huge public company thing is just not as much my cup of tea. I found that I was just more drawn to like the earlier stage entrepreneurial stuff, and so the biggest thing was like it's not a knock against Wayfair. It's a great company. They continue to do well. It just sort of like I wanted to go back to doing something a little bit earlier stage again. So that was really the biggest driver.
So why Yesware? What was the need that you felt like needed to be met? I mean, talk a little bit about that and how you're solving the problem now. Like there has to be a frustration. I think that for anybody who leaves to found a company or a solution, there has to be something that was frustrating them that caused them to say, you know what, there's got to be a better way to do this.
Yeah.
No matter what it is. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've mostly been involved in and around sales for most of my career, and we've had sales technology for a long time. But like the early versions of sales technology were mostly CRM, and CRM was mostly designed with the managers in mind. Like the original way that that CRM got sold like 20 or 30 years ago is you go around to a company and say, hey, look, like what happens if your top rep leaves the company? Like they're taking their Rolodex with them, and like then you're screwed. Was sort of the way a lot of this stuff got sold, and it's evolved over time to do more and more and more. And companies like Salesforce have certainly come to the fore. But there's an old joke about the reason they call it Salesforce is you have to force salespeople to use it. And so as we've evolved along the journey here, like there hasn't been as many technology that was really directed at the salespeople. And so the founding sort of philosophy of Yesware was like, let's build technology actually for salespeople and not for the manager. And what does that look like? And so the first product that Yesware ever came up with was taking some of the sort of the marketing automation technology around email opens and applying that to a salesperson. So when you would send an email out and somebody opened it, you'd get a Chrome notification that said, hey, like somebody just opened your email. So you could do something about it, which a marketer doesn't care about. They just care about, the aggregate of open rates and reply rates. And that's but if you're a salesperson and someone's engaging with your content and you're top of mind, like you want to get to them right now. And so that was sort of the first innovation that then, launched a bunch of additional features that we've built over time, but still fundamentally with this idea that like Yesware is mostly built for the salesperson.
Well, I can tell you what else it does, and I've used a similar type product. It makes you go, oh crap, I forgot to do that. When you see that email get opened, and
true.
It's opened by the person that asked you for something, because like, man, if you saw my inbox, it is absurd. And I will, I'm really bad about, I'll be right on it. And instead of me right clicking and creating a task from that email and putting it over in my task list or whatever, I just say, I'll get it to you, as quick as I can. And I'm on. And the next thing you know, it's buried under 500 other emails. And then 3 days later, I get the notification that so-and-so opened such and such. So guess what, people? If you've ever gotten an email from me, like right as soon as you were getting ready to email me and ask me and follow up, I just told you my secret as to how we're just happen to be on the same wavelength every time, right? So,
Right.
But it really does. It helps me stay in check with some of that stuff too. And really, it's neat because the person who you email right as they're getting ready to hit the send, and you've got the email dropping into their inbox, they're like, that is so weird. I was just getting ready to email you, and I'm like,
You don't say.
Imagine that.
Right.
It is always funny to call those people. Like you see them open something and give them a call. And I was just going through your email. Really? Interesting.
Yeah.
But it's
Well,
great from a sales perspective too, right? Because a lot of times, we'll go in and we have to request information. Obviously, I mean, I don't know of a salesperson that doesn't need some level of information to get a deal done. It doesn't matter what you're selling, as far as that goes. But specifically for us, obviously, we need to get underwriting information, loss information, all of that kind of stuff. And so it helps me keep track of some of that stuff too, so that when we're, when we're waiting for things, I can see that people are actually opening emails, which leads me to believe, okay, maybe they're forwarding this to somebody else or whatever else, so that I have so I can see that they're at least working on it and remove some of the anxiety that I may have that I don't have the stuff I need yet.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, and there's the old time kills deals, idea that that person that you maybe just happen to get while they were already focused on your content. I mean, it's possible that they get all of a sudden like a call comes in, they get distracted, now they forget about your thing, and like maybe they don't come back to it. So, your ability to go engage somebody in the moment when they're thinking about what you're doing it can be pretty powerful.
Absolutely. Kind of like we just talked about. Sometimes it might even catch them off guard a little bit, and then you've got their attention. So that's huge. So we obviously are in the insurance space, but this seems like it can really fit any type of industry. Talk a little bit about who your product works best for, if you have a target market, or if it really is just kind of something that can fit everyone.
Yeah, I think anybody that's selling anything could benefit from Yesware. So we have entrepreneurs that are basically the salesperson for their company. We have big public companies like Yelp, where all their salespeople use Yesware. It sort of runs the gamut. I would say in general we're probably best suited for people that have maybe a little bit more of a longer bespoke sales process. If it's like super highly transactional and it's really just about a numbers or a volume game, there's probably better tools out there. If you're really just trying to go for volume or sort of quantity over quality. But to the extent that you're selling anything, whether it's yourself or your company or a product or a service, and it takes a little bit of back and forth, Yesware, a tool like Yesware, I would say, is like table stakes for sales productivity these days.
Gotcha. So you've been with Yesware for how long now?
It's been about 5 years, actually. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. So over that 5-year span, I'm sure things have changed quite a bit. Talk a little bit about that and some of the things that you've had to do to adjust to the market, or just the way that people are receiving information these days.
Yeah, well, one of the things that's, for people that are sort of wonks about, sales and marketing tech, there's these, in technology, you have these S curves that happen where it's like something becomes really popular, then it starts to, sort of wane, and then the next thing sort of comes up. And it was like,
or if you're a QR code, it's you, right?
Yeah,
like
right.
You're here, then you go down, and now QR codes, because of COVID, are like the craziest. It's crazy to see how they've been revitalized right now.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's sometimes these things are predictable, and sometimes they're very unpredictable. And if you go back a little bit further and you look at like some of the things that have been in vogue from a sales perspective, it was a decade ago, it was probably inbound marketing. Everybody was talking about inbound marketing, which is a lot, when HubSpot sort of came, and really got a bunch of traction. Then it became more about account-based marketing, and then we started to see this, at least in tech sales, the SDR BDR function has sort of been the one that has sort of been pretty popular recently. And now the latest thing is product-led growth, which is how we try to go to market at Yesware, which is free trial, and you can discover the software yourself and get value from it. And we hopefully see that, and then we start to sell to you. But one of the things that happened in that sort of the 5 years that I've been there was this SDR BDR wave really got a lot of momentum behind it. In some ways, Yesware has benefited from that. But what's ended up happening is, because tech like Yesware got pretty popular, people that used to be able to send maybe 100 emails a month all of a sudden could send 1,000 emails a month, 2,000 emails a month, 10,000, whatever the number is. And so what you started to see was the volume of communication just going up unbelievably quickly. And so whereas maybe five or 6 years ago, you could get away with like a sloppily done email campaign to somebody. These days it's really hard because one, the spam protections are probably a lot tighter, but two, people have already gotten 200 of these, and it's like, as soon as, this is my opinion, I don't have, hard data to back this up, but my opinion is that for people, as soon as people think that they're being spoken to by a machine or it's just automation and there's no human behind it, like these days you're done, because we all get 5 million of those.
Oh, especially on LinkedIn, man. I'll chop them off at the knees every single time. Like, come on, man. Seriously, I have my first name and middle initial in my LinkedIn. Like, it's David R. and then my last name, Carothers. And so as soon as I see that you're sending a message to David R., I am going to, A, just absolutely rip you a new one, and then B, block you. Like, it's just – and it is insane.
The bots are out of control.
It's sad that marketing has gotten to that point. But you brought something up, too. I would caution people, when you start sending out email in volume like that, if you're not using something like Mailshake or something like that that's going to control how it goes out, especially with some of the tightened up restrictions of Microsoft 365 or Office 365 right now, like you just can't play around with email marketing, because you're going to get blacklisted. Your server will get blacklisted, and none of your emails are going to go through. I mean, we're dealing with this. We do some level of email marketing right now, and it's a very delicate dance you have to do, because otherwise all your stuff's going to end up in people's spam or junk, period.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and we, our approach is, and there are pluses and minuses to this, but our approach is we're actually sending from your actual email account. And so like we plug directly into Outlook, and we use the Outlook send, similar concept with Gmail. And so if, whereas like some, long-standing tradition in marketing and even some sales tech is basically use like burner domains, where it's like it doesn't get sent from your domain, it gets sent from this other domain until everybody spams the shit out of it, and then you got to make a new one. We actually use your domain, which can be good if you protect it, but the same thing can happen. Whereas, if all of a sudden you start sending out thousands of crappy emails to addresses that may or may not be validated, and it's bad content, and everybody puts it into spam, like you can torch your domain very, very quickly, and then your deliverability doesn't matter how good your message is, if it doesn't get delivered to the inbox, you're kind of screwed.
Right. That's interesting.
So here's a question. Yeah, here's a question I have for you, because I'm always interested, and I'm sure that I would hope that people would tell you about wins that they've had using your software. Because anytime I try a new toy and it works, I always want to give the right feedback to people. And if it doesn't work, I give them that feedback too, because hopefully it'll help them, make their product better. What are some of the biggest wins that you've heard from people since they've started using Yesware?
Yeah, there's one story that comes to mind, which was actually somebody that used to be a rep for a company that Yesware used to provide a particular service, and it was a more higher end, more expensive sort of intelligence service. And she was telling me one time that she was on the precipice of making her club trip for her company and needed one more deal to push her over the finish line. And an open came through from an email she sent 18 months ago, and she immediately called the person and said, hey, like, it's the end of the year, like, maybe you're not thinking about this, we could get a deal done if you're motivated to do it. He's like, you know what, actually, yeah. So she got the deal done, and she made the club trip. And so for her, it's like, the reason I made club that year was because of Yesware.
That's awesome. It is funny that those trips usually come down to the wire. My wife works for ADP, and they've got club, and it's like every year it's the last week of the fiscal, and it never fails that like she needs to get a deal or two or whatever it is, and just scrambling at the end, pulling out all the stops, and that's a perfect way to do it. I mean, you can track, like, that was somebody who hadn't reached out or had any contact really for 18 months, but you get a notification, you're able to give them a call, and they just happen to be in the buying mood. I mean, that's a perfect example of why this is a good feature to have.
Well, think about it. We've had people on the podcast before that missed the trip by like $150 or $200 and were pissed that they missed it. And I'm like, well, I mean, like, at what point is it a participation trophy? You know what I mean? It's like kind of, hey, it's either you hit the number or you don't. To me, that's kind of a real black and white thing. And I'm not a big fan of the company breaking the rules or bending the rules for somebody to accommodate them if they didn't hit it. Sorry, I don't care if you missed it by $1. You shouldn't go on the trip, period. I'm sorry. There's a lot of you listening. They're going to hate my guts for that. And you know what? I'll give you some good information that'll help you make more money down the road. You'll forgive me for it. But, you know, we have rules for a reason, right? It's like I had somebody the other day.
Settle down, safety patrol.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of what it was. It was I'll think about it here in a second, but somehow we were going back and forth with something, and it was like they were
on
bending
the pod?
rules. No, just in conversation.
Okay.
It may even have been one of my kids. They were bending the rules, saying maybe they had. Oh, I know what it was. Somebody had signed up for a LinkedIn, like a LinkedIn premium account that I was talking to, and they must have had a glitch in their billing. And for like a couple of years, they kept that LinkedIn account but never paid for it and had all the features. And they were like bragging about it. And I'm like, that's like kind of a moral hazard for me. I'm sorry, but I have a problem with that, you know. And they say, oh, why would, you know, they make plenty of money, blah blah blah. I'm like, well, you know, does that mean it's okay for me to go into the grocery store and shoplift steaks by stuffing them in my waistband as long as I don't get caught? It's okay. It's not against the law for me to do that. Like, there's no like concept that says it's okay to break the law as long as you don't get caught. You've still broken the law, right? So same thing, man.
Yeah.
So let's talk about like industry segments for you. I mean, I know that when we were talking originally that, you know, before we started recording, that you said, you know, you're not overly familiar with insurance. I don't think you need to be for what your product does. This is a solution for sales in general, and Lord knows the insurance industry hinges on that. But, you know, just for my own edification, where are you seeing the most penetration from a market share standpoint? What segments of industry are you really strong in right now?
Yeah, I mean, traditionally, a big part of our customer base has come from tech sales. So, you know, we've got big customers like, you know, Flywire and Monday.com and Groupon and Yelp. You know, the list sort of goes on there. Part of the reason for that, though, is that we started with our first application was Gmail only. It was a Chrome extension, and that we sort of take over your Gmail experience and make it a little bit more of a sales experience inside of Gmail. And we didn't actually have a really good Outlook product that we were proud of until about a year ago. And so part of the reason I think we have a lot of tech sales customers is because so many industries, and I'm guessing commercial insurance is probably one of those industries, people mostly use Outlook versus use Gmail. And so I think we just frustrated people with the fact that like it didn't work as well as it should have. And so now, you know, we worked very closely with Microsoft for a couple of years. Now we've got a really good Outlook solution. It's really easy to use, which is one of the reasons why people like us. And so we're starting to see now different industry verticals starting to show up, like financial services, like education, you know, like fundraisers for universities are showing up and using the platform. And so I'm expecting to see, you know, more and more folks from industries that maybe wouldn't be in sort of our traditional customer base starting to show up. Because you're right, it's like if you've got something to sell, you know, and you're not using a tool like Yesware, you're probably doing yourself a disservice.
So the people that have been most successful using your product, what does that setup look like? I mean, I want to get into a little bit about, and I mean, share as much as you feel comfortable sharing. Certainly, I'm not going to ask you for like the coding and secret sauce of your product, but yeah. I'm interested in what that journey looks like. So, I mean, I can tell you from our perspective what it looks like when we get a notification. But you had mentioned earlier on, again, before we were talking about how you can enroll people in campaigns and do all of these other things. So, does Yesware itself have a bit of a CRM component to it, or are you integrating with a third party like a HubSpot or a Salesforce or an Infusionsoft or whatever they're calling themselves these days?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, so today we do integrate with Salesforce, but what we're finding is that, people, especially SMBs, which is where we get a lot of business from SMB because we have this product-led model where you can just show up and download it, and within 60 seconds you're getting value out of Yesware versus a big, heavy top-down installation. So one of the things that we're finding is that people are generally not that psyched about their CRM, and it's no surprise given the history of a lot of these things. So we do integrate deeply with Salesforce, but we're increasingly pushing into trying to have more and more of that CRM experience exist inside of Yesware. That's not out available to the public yet, but I would say within 6 months, you'll have a view of your contacts, you'll have a view of your contact history. It'll be easy for you to add those contacts into a campaign. We have what you can add contacts into a campaign today, but it's largely done via CSV or from an upload from a Salesforce list. But there's any number of ways that you can kind of handle that. And our end goal, given enough time and money, is to actually allow somebody to run their sales team just on Yesware and not have to need you don't have to need a CRM plus a Yesware plus a Calendly and whatever other tools you want in it. You should just be able to run your sales team or your individual sales process on Yesware.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's my rub with our industry specifically, and you probably wouldn't know this, but it's just in order for us to be cohesive, not so much on the CRM side. I mean, the CRM that we use, I'm happy with. It's got a lot of functionality. I bet you we're using maybe 15 to 20% of what it's capable of. It still does wonders for us, but I just think that in the insurance industry, when we get a tool, it's like
there's so many different products. It's like there's a new one every day.
Yeah, I feel
right.
like Dr.
It's all
Frankenstein.
bolt-on stuff. Yeah.
I feel like Dr. Frankenstein having to create a monster, because everything it's bolt-on, and you can't just go by. There is no one size fits all, and I mean, part of that's the nature of the beast too, right? In the insurance world, there are so many just different variations of an agency. Are you life and health? Okay, if you are you small group, large group, Obamacare? Are you doing only life? Are you doing life and financial planning? Are you doing Main Street business? I mean, and everybody listening to this certainly knows that, and I think that's one of the things that makes it so difficult, is because a product that's designed for an agency like ours that focuses on true middle market accounts has much different needs than somebody who has a bunch of walk-in traffic. Earlier on, the people who are listening to this wouldn't have seen it, but I had to get up. We actually had a walk-in for the second time in 4 years.
Really?
And it's crazy. It's a walk-in that was actually referred to us for a segment of business that we have started writing in Florida for mobile pet groomers, which is kind of niche. But somebody had referred a pet groomer that this lady knew, referred her to come in.
Dude,
and sure
Duran
enough,
is just crushing the pet groomers.
Just wishing she would have been here yesterday when he was here in person.
Man,
he loves writing pet groomers.
I would have paid
I'd love
for
to
that.
just been quiet and see the interaction. Honestly,
I know, it would have been awesome.
Yeah. But I mean, I think that's part of it, right? It's interesting that I would have bet big money to guess that your number one penetration in terms of market segments would have been software sales, IT sales of some sort.
Yeah.
It seems to me like as you troll around LinkedIn or wherever it is that you consume content or information, I follow guys like Brian Burns and Josh Braun and some of these other people that are, sales gurus, just because I feel like there's a lot of things in the sales game that are applicable regardless of what your industry is. So I always listen to those guys and then try and figure out how I can apply some of what they teach that I've not tried before to our industry. But just the resources for sales training and development and everything alone all seems like that is the one segment of the economy that they all go after.
Yeah.
Is IT sales and software sales and stuff. So,
yeah.
And it's really, really competitive, man. It's one of those things. And I think from our perspective, I'll stay right. I'm good. I'll stay right where I'm at, man, because they have to have what I have. People have to have workers' compensation. Right. They don't have to have a new software toy. And I think that that's a much different, no matter how much the salesperson's convicted that they need it, you really have to convince somebody that they need what you have. In our world, they know they need what we have in terms of a product. All we have to do is convince them to buy us because of our process. And if we can do that, then we're going to be golden. The product piece for us is easy because the mechanics of it, by and large, are pretty similar across the board. Now, there are things that could be included in the form of exclusions, and agents can certainly miss things and not give an appropriate coverage. And I don't want to discount the importance of understanding coverage, but in the sales portion of what we do, the most successful agents that I know are never going out and going deep and let me explain every single page of an insurance policy to you. They're not doing that. They're going in and saying, here are all the operational issues you have in your company. Yes, we can protect you with insurance, but in order for us to get the absolute best deal on that, let's talk about all of these things that you're not doing well right now that contribute to the overall pricing model for what you're going to pay in your premium. And so just that difference alone tells me I'm just fine where I'm at. I think I would have a very different, as much as I think I can sell. Yeah. I think it's a much more competitive and difficult sale in the software game than it is for what we do.
Yeah. Well, I think also I don't know a lot about commercial insurance. I have a few friends that are in this world, and it seems like, commercial insurance for a long time has had what software is really trying to get at with SaaS, where it's like you get a recurring subscription. I imagine if you go through all the pains to get a customer and you understand their business, you're like, okay, well, here's what you need. And then it comes time to renew. Like, I think like for our like cyber insurance and D&O insurance, like I think it's a rubber stamp almost. I hope our brokers aren't listening to this, but it's like, it's almost a rubber stamp because it's like, well, why am I going to go now and search for a new insurance person when this seems to be fine? And it's like I got a million other things I'm dealing with.
So I mean, but would you think that's different in the software industry just because it's always changing? Like there's new technology. I mean, they just
don't have it. I think that as you look at the way software has moved now, they've figured out that the recurring revenue model is where they want to be. So instead of trying to go, I think, and correct me, Joel, because I probably know less about software sales than you know about commercial insurance, honestly. But I think that probably one of the first hurdles, that a software company would run into would be the upfront cost to implement and bring it in, and getting over that hurdle with the buyer and having them understand why there's an implementation fee and why there's a huge upfront cost. Whereas now I feel like and this is just for my own shopping for things for the agency, it seems like that upfront cost has been softened a little bit. Many times that setup fee is waived. I think it's more of a marketing tool than anything else. Oh, well, go ahead and waive your setup fee. Oh, great. You did it for the last 367 people as well. Right. Thanks for making me feel special. But they've moved into more of that recurring revenue model, and you'll see that. I mean, any one of us that goes out to buy something for the agency always is hooked by, oh, wow, this product is only $720 a year. Well, guess what? That's if you're willing to pay $720 now. If you don't want to do that, it's $99 a month. Then you're going to pay almost $1,200 for it. So, I think part of it is that they've softened it a little bit. I think the other part of it is they figured out, people way smarter than what I am, how much they really need to bring in a lump sum, that if they have that money and they can deploy it into other areas, it's actually going to yield more than the $11.99 or whatever would if it's spread out over the course of 12 months. And so, it's become more of a marketing thing. And I would be interested in looking at studies, and I'm sure they're out there, to see how many people actually pay the annualized amount up front to save the money versus the people who just put it on a month to month. Because to me,
guess it depends how much the upfront is.
Yeah, but I mean, it's everything, man. It's Calendly. It's any of these tools. I mean, I just picked up a subscription to Hunter.io, so that we can fill in email addresses and contact records that we don't have emails in, so that we can, have a complete record in our CRM. And again, I paid the annual fee because I could afford it, and B, I saved enough money. It didn't make sense for me to have an installment charge. But I can also flip the coin and make the other argument that for some of the smaller agencies that don't have the ability, I mean, look, I'm not knocking anybody. There was a time in my life when $720 just wasn't happening for an annual subscription, but I could pay $75 a month and then bet that is going to bring enough revenue or efficiency to my operation that I'll consistently be able to pay the $75 a month. And I think that there's agencies out there that's just what they do. And so that also allows the software company or whoever the company, the service provider or whatever, to be able to gain a sale that they otherwise may not have gotten, right? And
True.
they're saying, you know what?
Yep.
Here we go. I would rather sell it and string out the cash, but make enough, interest, for lack of a better word, on stringing the monthly payments than I would not having anything at all. And I think that that's probably a big difference in the way things have happened, just in the last several years. I've seen that.
Yeah, well, the dynamics of what it costs to do something have changed a lot. So it used to be like when I first got into software, we would sell we'd have to sell Oracle servers and Oracle databases and Spark servers, and you're talking, $200,000 or $300,000 for the hardware and somebody to set it up and screw it in, and there was just a lot to it. And now everything runs on the cloud, and everything's getting cheaper and cheaper on the cloud. And so, if I'm trying to compete with somebody and I show up and say, all right, well, actually, like, you can start with Yesware for free and get some value out of it, and then if you like it, pay us some money, and then if you really like it, commit to a year, versus somebody else coming in and saying, well, like, before you can even try this thing, like, we got to go through a setup, and you got to pay me all this money. Mm-hmm. So it's like the consumer is getting more and more power in this. And if you look at software prices over time, and there's another Boston-based company called Profitwell that does a lot of good research on prices and packaging and what people are doing. Prices have come down very, very significantly for software over time. It's very highly deflationary, and it's hard. The average software startup today, I think that the stat is 7 or 8 years ago you might have had 5 competitors, and now you've probably got 20. Because it's just not as expensive to set this stuff up. There's this big open source world where you can stand up, applications relatively quickly. You've got Amazon. You got all these things that you didn't have, 10 or 15 years ago, and that's really driven a change in how people are able to sell software and also how people are able and expect to buy it.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what morphs over the next little bit. I think that with COVID and things getting back to the way they used to be, where we're able to do things in person, it's going to be interesting to see how some of these technologies that have profited from COVID change, if they change at all. I think like Zoom, for example, my goodness. Zoom had like a pretty major data breach, and that just sort of got swept under the rug. Like, it was almost like it went away, like Hunter Biden's laptop, but did I say sorry about that? But no, seriously, it's like I haven't heard anything at all about that since. And I know that I rely heavily on Zoom, and I think that a lot of our clients at this point are really cool with just doing Zoom meetings instead of taking time out of their day.
Well, yeah, think about too, like how many other platforms there are out there like Zoom, but I mean, when anybody's talking about doing like a video conference or chat or whatever, it's all you just say, let's jump on a Zoom.
Well, that's
right?
outstanding. In my opinion, that's outstanding branding, because
that's what I'm saying.
GoToWebinar's been around for how long? GoToMeeting has been around for how long?
Yeah. Well, that's what we used to use at CoAd. We used GoToMeeting and all that sort of thing, and I just like totally forgot about it.
WebEx.
Now you hear one word, right? Either Zoom or Teams. Those are the two.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you want to jump on a Teams? You want to jump on a Teams? You want to jump on a Zoom? Those are the two that I hear more frequently than anything else.
Right.
And so, it's gonna be an interesting study to see what that looks like going forward. What do you see coming in the future for you? I mean, I know you said that you're looking to try and make this thing an all-in-one solution. Right now, you have the email piece of it. What's the next step in that evolution from your perspective?
Yeah, I mean, we're currently, as I mentioned, we're working on adding sort of a contact view that it sort of builds itself. So what we'll do is we'll go through. We're already doing this anyway. We're going through all your inbox to see who you're talking to. So we'll start to build all those contacts. We'll build your communication history with those contacts, and then similar to what you were talking about with Hunter.io, will allow you to then start to enrich information about those folks. So if you want to find out a little bit more about them, so you can write a more personalized email. Eventually, give you the ability to say like, I actually need to find a bunch more people that look like this person, or help me find more people that are in the mid market in Florida and in some particular industry, and show me those contacts. Allowing Yesware to sort of travel with you around the web. So if you're doing some research and let's say you're on I don't know, University of Central Florida website, and you're trying to figure out who the provost is, like we'll give you some view of like, well, here are all the people that we know there. Do you want to pay to get their contact information? Allow people to very quickly just go and add that add that contact information, and then we already have the ability to put people into a communication campaign. So you could say, send them this email. If they don't respond, send them that email. If they don't respond, hit them up on LinkedIn. If they don't respond, call them. That type of stuff. So the idea would be, I guess if I think about what I hope for we could deliver for salespeople, a lot of what we've done to this point is saving salespeople time. So it's like you shouldn't waste time doing things twice. If you could do a template, do a template. If you can do a campaign, do a campaign. It's usually the same. Like, don't do that. And then the second thing is, okay, well, what's all the intelligence that we can give you so you can work smarter? So giving you open information, giving you information about your history of communications with somebody, giving you information about who this person is beyond just what you might know about them. And then eventually what we want to start to do more of is we're working on building this now, this thing we call the sort of the universal to-do list, which is the place to store all of your tasks, whether it's like, I got to go remember to get the milk, or whether it's like, oh, I should follow up with this person, or, oh, I've got these 3 calls to make. Getting that to be a place where like everything that you have to do is done there. And the concept behind that is, sales is hard enough. And you think about in tennis, they talk about this concept of like forced or unforced errors. Like, okay, well, Serena just hit a 100-mile-an-hour serve down the middle. Like, you missed it. Like, that's an unforced error. Like, who was going to get that? But then it's like you get an easy ball to you and you slap it into the net. That's an unforced error. And I think for sales, a lot of what ends up happening to people is it's a hard job. You get busy, a million things happen. David, you were talking earlier about your inbox. It's like you forget about something, and it's like, that's an unforced error if you forget about somebody. It's like, in a perfect world, what ends up happening is you decide to break up with somebody either because it's not the right time or they're not the right fit, but you don't, like, things just don't happen to you. If you could be very intentional with your time so that you knew that all the people that I'm talking to right now are the people that I want to talk to, and I'm sort of full up, if you will. And the people that are not ready, like, I'm putting them into keep warm mode for 6 months. I'm going to revisit it again. And so trying to get to a place where all of that becomes systematized for reps, and they don't have to do so much of that work themselves, is really where we're ultimately trying to take it.
Yeah, I think that's huge. Just think about like a typical day. You're getting emails, you're getting phone calls, like we just had a walk-in, like you're receiving all this information, and if that's not all housed in one spot, you're going to lose stuff. Like I've got reminders on my legal pad, I've got reminders in HubSpot, I have stuff in Outlook, and it's like, that's all good, but those are 3 different places on my phone, 4 different places that I'm having to check and make sure that I'm wrapping everything up the right way. And it's definitely easy to miss things, for sure. So I think that's important.
Yeah. I'm gonna go back to something real quick because I want to do it before I forget. I think it's an interesting move for you to be able to offer people to pay to get more information. Ultimately, the email address is the holy grail. That's what you want from somebody. It used to be the phone number or the cell phone or whatever else, but it seems like, for as much automation is out there in the marketplace to be able to just do drip campaigns and everything else, you need that email address. How do you envision that? That's not something you're doing right now, or it is something you're doing?
It's something that we're piloting. So we've got some folks that we're working with that are the sort of the providers of the information, if you will. And what we're now working on is sort of the user experience of that, of like, how do we surface to somebody that we have their information, what's a pricing structure for buying it, how, if you want to buy get information for a bunch of people at once, how does that work? So we're currently building all that functionality. What we're sort of envisioning is, because we try to offer at least some portion of all aspects of our product for free, is we'll probably do something similar to what some others are doing, whereas like if you're on the free tier of Yesware, we'll give you a certain amount of contacts so you can enrich each month for free, like 5, or I don't know what the number will end up being. And then if you want to get more, then you've got to either buy a monthly subscription or an annual subscription, so that'll get you hundreds or thousands or some other number like that. But But it probably, the incentive for people to try it would be, hey, like come and try it and we'll give you a few for free and you can see if the data quality is any good. You can, test it out and then hopefully you like it and you get some value out of it and you're willing to pay a little bit more for it.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering, if you were just going to do it as a one-off, like you can pay like $1 to get this email address or whatever, or if you were just going to sell it in units or blocks or whatever, so they got X number a month, or was it going to be a hybrid model to where if people, didn't want to have to commit to, spending the money to get 500 email addresses a month, maybe they want to pay a little bit, just back to the same pricing model we were talking about before, right?
Yeah, it's interesting. We have thought about this concept of like a micro transaction where it's like, okay, well, yeah, if you want this contact right now in this moment, just pay us $1 and you can get it.
What you run into that though is the processing fees probably make it somewhat cost prohibitive, right? Because depending on who your card processor is, when you start getting into these micro transactions, you abandon the just percentage model. They put a flat fee per transaction plus a percentage, and you might be making, I don't want to say 75 cents on the dollar, but many times it's like 20 or 25 cents just for the transaction to happen, plus 3% or 2.5% or whatever they charge you to handle the card. So, I mean, I don't even know that it makes sense for you to be able to do it at that point.
Yeah, I don't know either. I mean, it's one of the benefits of delivering product in the way that we deliver it is we get a lot of information back about what people are doing, and so ideally the way that that we develop products in the best way is we test things out and we watch what people do, and if it works, we do more of it. If it doesn't work, we change and we try something else. And that's a benefit of having a pretty big user base. As we put something out there, people find it, people start tinkering with it. So we say, all right, well, nobody would pay $1. Will they pay $2? Or people want to pay $30 a month for 100, but actually, that's not a good deal for us. So how about if we do, 50 for, 125 or something? So that I think we'll just have to figure that out in the field with experimentation.
So another question I had was, you guys obviously with a good number of clients have the ability to see trends across your entire user base. Are you able to use that data to provide intelligence and reports to your users? Obviously you're not going to name what everybody's doing, but I mean just in broad strokes to help them enhance best practices and get the most return on their investment with your product? Yeah, we do that. In fact, just do a little plug for our blog, which you can find from our webpage, yesware.com. You can see at the top there's a link to our blog. And in our blog, we have tons of data-driven posts like that, and we've got an ebook that you can download about sort of the latest sales engagement trends, where we look at subject lines, we look at time of day that people are sending, we look at the types of email campaigns that seem to be working versus not working, which you can. There's a lot of sort of practical tips you can use right away. We don't charge anything for it. So yeah, and that's we're seeing something like 1 billion sales interactions a year between sends and replies and opens and all that stuff. So we've got quite a big data set from which to be able to draw conclusions from.
Nice.
Good deal. Well, what could we possibly have missed? I mean, I think we've peppered a bunch of different things about Yesware. What do you want to get out that we haven't talked about, Joel?
Well, I mean, I guess I would say that, for your audience that maybe hasn't experimented with tools like this, I would say, whether or not you use a Yesware, you should use something like a Yesware, because if you're not using a tool like Yesware, you're operating minimally at an information disadvantage to your competitor, and also probably a time disadvantage to your competitor, because you're just not using your time as efficiently as you could. And so I would encourage people to come to the website. You can start a free trial, and we've got a free tier of Yesware you can get email tracking for up to 24 hours for unlimited events. So, there's some stuff that you can tinker with and see if you have some success, and that changes. And if you want, you can pay for it. And if you don't like Yesware, there's other alternatives on the market that do things that are similar to what we do. But I think the biggest thing is to try it. And tools like ours are I would think pretty easy to use, even if you're not using all the advanced features. You can at least get a little bit of value out of it right away, and try to use technology to up your sales game. I mean, the goal is to is to be able to spend more time on, the conversations that you were talking about earlier about, like, trying to understand somebody's business and, like, what are their policies today? Like, what should they be? Like, what are their blind spots? You don't want to be spending time, sending the same email over and over again or wasting time on that. Like, none of that stuff really at the end of the day matters. It's about the conversations and the questions that you're asking people, the things that really, really matter in sales. So we're just a helper, to try to get people in position to have those conversations. But I would just encourage people to give it a whirl. If it's not us, like, try somebody else.
There you have it, people.
Yeah. So where do they find you, Joel?
You can find us at www.yesware.com. You can download the software. You get a link to download the software there. You can check out our blog there. If you want to reach me, you can always reach me, jstevenson@yesware.com.
And I assume there's a link for them to sign up for a demo or whatever the next steps would be when they get there, right?
Yep. Yeah, we're pretty in your face about that. So.
I would expect
Cool.
nothing less, actually. But at the end of the day, people, this is a really good tool. It's something, in full disclosure, we do not use Yesware in the agency. Anybody listening to the podcast knows that we use HubSpot. You also know that HubSpot is extremely expensive and comes completely undeveloped. So it's not just expensive to buy the software, but it's extremely expensive to hire somebody to do it for you. And it's even more expensive if you try and do it yourself and don't really know what you're doing, because your hourly rate is more valuable out producing business than it is programming a CRM to do what you need to do. So I think I can say unequivocally that Joel's product is a better price point for somebody who's looking to have this functionality than running out and buying a full-blown subscription to HubSpot. So I would encourage you to go and
Do the
check
demo.
his website out, do the demo, and watch how this works. I mean, this is everything that they're doing is basically what we're doing in our agency. It's just in our world, it's a small component of a much bigger bill and product every month, and it's not every agency out there needs what we have. In fact, most don't need what we have. So I would encourage you to check it out. I think it's a great technology that will put you in a position to compete with people who don't have it. And the one thing I can tell you is if you don't have this to give you a leg up, at some point you're going to find out who does, and it's going to be too late. So we're going to wrap up with that. Joel, I appreciate you taking some time to come on the podcast, man. Really anxious to watch how you guys continue to grow and expand. I wish you nothing but the best, man. I love having tech people on here and hearing what they're doing and how they can help our industry, even if they haven't, if they're not full bore in the insurance industry. And I think sometimes, it's a refreshing thing. Our industry gets so focused on InsurTech, that's of agents, by agents, and for agents, that we miss the fact that there are actually tech professionals out there that have really, really good products that will work in insurance. Not everything has to come from an insurance agent that was pissed off and looked for a better way. There are things out there that already exist that can easily be adapted to our industry. So I really appreciate you coming on, man. I look forward to releasing this, and I wish you guys nothing but the best, and we'll certainly be following you going forward. So thank you.
All right. Thanks for having me. I enjoyed the conversation.
Yes, sir.
You've been listening to the Power Producers Podcast. You can follow Killing Commercial Insurance on Facebook and YouTube. And if you want to take your game to the next level, check out our book, The Extra 2 Minutes, and our website, killingcommercial.com.